It's a great time for another installment of KETIV's Autodesk Virtual Academy. And today we have a great host today, the magnanimous, the gregarious, congenial Brian Mongkolpoonsuk. Brian, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself here for us?
Sure. Thank you, Adam. I'm a customer success manager here at KETIV, and my role here is to ensure that you are happy and successful, most importantly, with the tools and services that we provide you.
That's what I like to hear, man. Brian's one of our best and brightest over here. And Brian, I understand today you have a topic for us that's going to be particularly beneficial for anyone that's looking to help standardize and collaborate within their companies better. Is that right?
I do, Adam. I do. It's
nice.
Title block templates in Inventor. And I want to just clarify that when I say title blocks, I don't just mean like that little, description at the bottom right corner of your drawings. I actually mean the border and like maybe the views and the parts list itself. So I'll be diving into those other variables that play a part in your template. So
all right. Thanks a lot, man. Yeah. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it back to Brian to take us away on this magical journey into custom title blocks and templates.
I appreciate that, Adam. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. So title block templates, why do we need them? Obviously, one is because it adds consistency. You want to ensure that you're providing the same information every single time that you're creating a drawing. You don't want to leave out like a parts list. Obviously, you don't want to leave out the date, the part number, and you also want these to update. So the consistency helps play a role when it comes to templates, and we'll show you how to have it sync up and reference your model designs here. It helps to reduce errors because we are all human after all, and we are prone to make errors wherever there is room to make them. And it helps to reduce redundancy as well. Having to create the company logo every time, having to create the referenced information every time, especially after you make a change and you have to update all that information. This webinar will be for you because it'll help reduce all of that. All right, let's go on to the next slide here. So here are the variables we'll be adjusting in our template. First, we'll be going into the borders, which is what goes around the template, the drawing. Title block, of course, is what is at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen with the logo, usually the company logo, sheet size, designer, things like that, information like that. Sketch symbols. So if your company provides or needs and creates common symbols that you'd put in your drawings, you can templatize those as well. And in addition, AutoCAD blocks. If you have AutoCAD blocks from AutoCAD that you already have, instead of having to recreate all of them, you can reference them in your templates. And to tie it all together, there's sheet format. So sheet format, you can define, what size sheet it is, the views, the parts list, like you can see here on the screen, and what goes into the parts list, and essentially set it up with and the borders and title block. It kind of, like I said, sums it all up together and packages it for you. So that's why I put sheet format there at the end. So let me go ahead and drag in my Inventor over here, and let's go ahead and get into the demonstration. So first, I'm going to click on projects, and we're going to want to find where the templates are located so we can essentially make the changes to the templates itself. Because if we just open up a template right now, it's just going to be like we're using the template, but we actually want to make changes to this template. So to find that, if you go to your project, go to folder options, go to templates, this will have the file explorer location of this. We can go ahead and right click and copy that. And we can go ahead and paste that in our file explorer. Now, mind you, if you have a shared drive or shared location, that might be the location of this here. If this is just like a local location, just know that it's only going to affect your templates locally. And if you have a vaulted templates, you want to make sure that these are uploaded and changed on the vault. So there's different various scenarios that you may be a part of. So just make sure to talk to us about, what scenario you have and if you're using it right or not. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this into my file explorer. And now we are at the location of the templates. And it's in this very long thread there. So yeah, here are our DWGs, IAMs, IDWs, and any of these file types you put into this folder here is going to show up in your Inventor. So for example, I made this test template to prove that point, DWG there. And if we go back in here to Inventor and we want to create a new drawing, we have the test template here in this location ready to go. So it detects that and it kind of adds that template to be utilized. So going back to our file explorer here, before you make any changes here, I highly recommend to go back to this level of your templates of this folder and right click and make a copy of it. That's so if you make any changes to your templates and you mess it up to the drawings or IDWs, you actually have a copy, a safety copy ready to go. So I went ahead and did that there. Since I already did that, let's go ahead and edit one of these. So going into here and opening it up from this location allows us to actually make changes to the template as opposed to opening it up from Inventor itself. So just keep that in mind. And we have the option, since we're focusing on drawings today, either opening up a DWG and an IDW. DWGs are usually associated with AutoCAD, but in Inventor, since Inventor came out after AutoCAD, they gave you the option of an IDW or a DWG. And a lot of companies like to use IDWs because one, they maybe have already started with that and they have a lot of legacy data that's IDWs. And two, they might be utilizing IDWs for just being able to differentiate that these are their Inventor drawings and these are their AutoCAD drawings. Because sometimes if you create a DWG in Inventor and you put them in the same folder as some AutoCAD drawings, it can easily be mistaken for the other. So today we're actually going to be opening up a DWG and modifying them. They have if not almost the same title block templatized editing capabilities. So it doesn't really matter which one we show today, but this DWG gives you the addition to edit AutoCAD blocks. So I'll go ahead and double click on that and we are in our template. And let's go ahead and expand some of this in the drawing resources here. Here are the different variables I was talking about that we'll be modifying. Sheet 1 is showing what of the variables that we have here are being used. So ANSI large, for example, is a title block, and that's being used here. And default border is a border that's being used there. And then these are just some sheet formats that we can choose from, like different packages of borders, title blocks, and what have you. So that's what these are there. So we'll be going into this last. So first, let's go ahead and talk about editing or customizing your borders. So right now it's using this default border. If I hit the sheet 1 here and hit delete, it gets rid of that. If I double click on that, it adds it in here. And let's say we wanted just a plain old border without any numbers or anything like that. We can go ahead and delete that here. Right click on borders and we have two options. We'll go into the first one first, define new border. And this gives us the ability to just use the sketching tools in Inventor. And I can just start defining in respect to the page how I want my margins to be. Right, so this is one way to go about it. I'll show there's a quicker way or another way to go about this as well. So we can have 1/2" margins. Maybe what I could have done is clicked on maybe this dimension and have it reference that. So if I just change this one dimension, it'll update all of them. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And once I hit finish sketch here, I can just put in a description for it. And now I have this border ready to be utilized. So if I double click on this, right now it doesn't have any in my sheet 1. I can just double click on that and now it's utilizing that. And notice how my title block snaps to this border. The title block tends to snap to the bottom right by default because if you go to edit sheet here, the orientation is set to that based off our sheet. And we can have it set to the top left, for example, if we wanted to, and it'll go to the top left. We'll go more into the title block creation in next, actually. But yeah, just keep that in mind. If you want to move that around, you can do so here. And the nice thing about these margins or these this border is that you're able to also change the sheet size, and it'll update according to the sheet size because it was referencing the paper, not the, yeah, it was just referencing the paper, right? So another way we can go about creating these borders, let me go ahead and delete that, is if we right click on it and hit define new zone border. So this one's a more, it's like a template within a template. It's already kind of, it's giving you the options for zones. Like if you saw on the default border, let me go ahead and just open or show one of these. You can see that there's these A, B, C on the left-hand side going up, and then there's 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's what these zones are. And companies like to call out different zones, like A or like B2, for example. That would be, I don't know if it's hard to see here, but B is right here. And then 2 would be right here. So they would call out, oh, in B2 of the drawing, I want to make this change, or just pay attention to this. So that's why they have these here to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and create my own real quick here. Right click, define new zone border. And we can define them numerically, alphabetically. We can have none on these as well, and that can help create the margins that we saw previously, just a blank slate, but we're going to create these. And then if we hit this arrow here, it'll expand for more details. Instead of lines that are in between each zone, we can add an arrowhead. Instead of going, it was going D, C, B, A, instead of A, B, C, D, we can go vice versa for those. And then here is where you can define your margins. So if I wanted them to all be 1/2 inch, this looks like it's 1/2 inch top and bottom, but 3/4 of an inch left and right, I can just change that to 1/2 inch there. And then when I hit OK, it will go ahead and define that for us. So it does have a lot of different dimensions and things like that that come in. And if you want to make changes to this, you actually can't. You just go and create a new template or a new border. So just keep that in mind when working here. So we can call this KETIV border. There we go. So something like that. All right, next, let's go ahead and dive into, I do see some questions coming in, but let's see if we can maybe. Okay, so I think I just answered that question of how do you add zones to the borders. Yeah, that's essentially the define new zone border. All right, so for title blocks, so right now we're utilizing, of course, the ANSI large here. We can hit delete and we can create our own. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the ANSI large and see what it consists of. So notice one, it's in the middle of the page. That's because, like I showed, it will snap to the bottom right. 2, it has a lot of dimensions. I won't create each and every dimension for my title block today, so you guys can save time. But essentially, we are going to create some of these variables and that reference essentially whatever you want it to reference or whatever data is available. Like this references the creation date, maybe of the model itself, the company, et cetera, et cetera. So this is just like an idea of what a title block typically looks like. So let's go ahead and create our own. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to right click the title block and define new title block. And we're back in the sketching environment. I'm going to just create it here somewhere in space and start defining some of the sketching here. And bear with me, I'm going to do a few button clicks for just creating this template just to make it look somewhat decent for everyone here. And I want to add some dimensions to just make sure they are the distance that I actually expect them to be. So there we go. And then we'll keep going down here. Oops, went over. I'll just trim that off. Yeah, you can definitely spend time on just making this look nice to make it look professional. And then let's go ahead and add some lines going down the middle here. And if I wanted this to be 2/3, because I've split in half and I want to be like 2/3 equal distance apart, we can go ahead and add some math to the dimension itself. So I know this distance is 2.5 divided by 3. Right, so got some of that, and I want this to be kind of open down below here. So trim, a neat little trimming tip is you can just click and hold the left mouse and then just drag across. Then let's go ahead and place just a few more here, and then we should be good. Sure, and yeah, I would go in and dimension some of these, but you get the point. So now let's go ahead and insert some of the text here. So first off, we will put just name, and this is something that will just be templatized and just stagnant, just name. So I'm not going to make any changes to this. And notice at the top left, that's where it can be defined from. So if I can make my dimensions based off that if I wanted to, or if I wanted to center this, I instead can go back to this name and choose center justification, hit OK. Now this purple dot, if you can see that there, is in the center of name, and whatever this ends up being in the future, or actually, I guess for the reference information, it will be in the center. For this, it doesn't have to be, but I mean, it helps to be able to have something that you can reference into the center of this. So what I can do now is I can go to the center of this here. So let's go here. Let me just draw a line out here in space. Dimension that to be 0.833 divided by 2. And then we can just like drag that over to there and then like delete that, for instance. Just generally, you can go ahead and make, oh, I should have lowered it actually. You can make dimensions based off that. I'm not going to make a dimension for each one, but you can. You have the ability to do that, and that's what it was like in the title block beforehand. So I'll go ahead and just do this one, and this one was the 0.833 divided by 2. Okay. So now let's just go ahead and quickly go through the rest here. This one would be date. And then over here, we want to put who it was designed by, so designer. Here, let's put approved by, and maybe we can just hit enter, and I'll center this so it could be right below each other perfectly. And then when I put that into the middle there, It looks a little bit nicer there. And then over here, this is where we start referencing the data. So the designer, if I go to this type here, I can reference the model. And I will go to, instead of appearance, I'll be adding designer. And then we have to hit this add text parameter before we hit OK, because it needs to show up here. And now we can go ahead and put that in here. Let me center this, because when I wanted to show, I wanted to actually show starting from the center. And it is okay if it overlaps, because sometimes it's going to be shorter than what it is here, especially the date. But just keep that in mind. If you do have a long name, for instance, then you might want to make the title block bigger. But yeah, it's okay if this text overlaps. But if like permanent text or future text does overlap, just consider making a bigger title block. And then over here, again, let's create a reference. So this one is referencing the creation date. So again, the name itself is long, but the date won't be. And approved by. So besides just having references to the model when we insert the model itself, what we can do is have it reference or have us have prompted entry. So when you go to create this drawing, you will be able to, it will ask you, Inventor will pop up with a window saying, hey, please enter in this information before moving forward. So that's what prompted entry is. And we could tell them to put in approved by you can just put approved by, and then the person on the other end should know to put in the name of that person. So that would be located here. So make sure that's a prompted entry. Yeah, it's prompted entry. Good. And then another prompted entry could be the date it was approved by. So let's go ahead and place that in here as well. Oh, sorry. Prompted entry, date approved. And that's a little too long. So let me go ahead and put it on the second line. And there we go. And we can also put in scale. Let me put in like 1 or 2 more text here. So this can be from the drawing properties. Oh, sorry. The, what was it? Sheet properties. Go ahead and drop that in. And that will be like where I want to put my scale. And then maybe a revision or a sheet properties. Yeah, revision. Or maybe we'll put a sheet size. I want to put a sheet size. You probably would have both, but I don't want to make this go on any longer. What else is important, of course, is the title, and then you will have a company logo. So let me put in the title, and then I'll put in the company logo, so you don't have to put that image in every time. So let's go ahead and put in the title. And then the company logo will go here. So we're going to go to image, place where we want the image at. I'm going to go to my pictures, put in a KETIV one. And let's go ahead and shrink that and move that down to the center there. And yeah, so before I went too quick through that, let me go into the insert image option again. So essentially you have the option, and I need to make sure I bring up this point, to link or not link the drawing. If you link it, there's pros and cons. The pros is you're able to essentially change the logo if you do change logo, and it will link to all the templates and the drawings that you currently had for it. If you unlink this, it will embed that picture into your template. So if you decide to change the logo later, it won't update other ones because they are not linked. So just keep that in mind when inserting an image. So this one's not linked. Okay. And I'm sorry, I need to put in one more information here. This will be the part number. Yeah, it's a lot of information to make it start looking somewhat like a actual title block. So once I'm happy with this, I will go ahead and hit finish sketch. Just save it as KETIV. And if I take a look at my title box here, I'll just go ahead and double click that. This is where it prompts me for who's approved by. Just put myself and date approved. Today is the 25th. And it didn't fill out the rest of the information yet because that comes in with the model. So let's go ahead and go on to the next part, which is sketch symbols. So this might not apply to everyone, but if you have any symbols that you need to essentially bring in consistently, and you don't have to want to keep drawing them from scratch every time, you're going to want to create a sketch symbols. And this is located at the same location here. Design data symbol library. And it saves it in an IDW. So let's go ahead and create our sketch symbol, right click, define new symbol. And I'm going to go ahead and create a center of gravity one symbol. You can also create text, which I will create. Just want to make sure we have enough time here. And let's go ahead and split those and hatch. Now we have a sketch symbol, and we'll just call it center of gravity. And we can use that whenever we want and when we're using this drawing. Now we can go to our AutoCAD blocks if you want to insert some of these. So if I go to import, all right, real quick before I do that, let me go ahead and define text. And this would be maybe some notes that your company has, text that you don't want to populate every time you create a new drawing. So it might be warning symbols, things like that. That's another idea for what a sketch symbol can be utilized for. And then AutoCAD blocks. So if you had AutoCAD blocks from before, you can go to import AutoCAD blocks. I'm already referencing this DWG, for example, that has blocks, and they have the blocks here on the right-hand side that I can choose from. And then I can go ahead and define what scale this block is supposed to be brought in as, unless you already had that scale figured out. And you could bring in those blocks like that, for example. But I just wanted to show you that that's possible. I'm not going to actually add that to my finished drawing here. So, okay. Lastly, to wrap it all up, there is the sheet formats. And the sheet formats is created by referencing one of these sheets that we have laid out here. So if I created a sheet format right now, if I go to edit sheet here, it's going to use a C-size drawing. It's going to use this title block that's in the sheet, et cetera, et cetera. What I do want to add to this before I create my sheet format is a view. If I want the drawing, the model to come in with a front view, side view, top, and isometric view every time, we can go ahead and do that and templatize that even if you want. So let me insert the example of a car seat. Front, top, side, ISO. And let's go ahead and move that. Oops. Move that down below here. So every time you create a new drawing with this template, it'll create these 3 views for your model. And it'll even create different shades if you wanted this one to be shaded in. And if you want to create a parts list every time, you can go to annotate, parts list. I'll reference the front view and place that in, and it'll populate that every time you create a new drawing with this template. Even in the parts list, you can customize what column you want this to bring in. So for example, if I want to show material in every parts list, we can have materials be shown to be brought in. All right. So once I'm happy with my sheet and all the customizations that go into it related to your company, let's go ahead and right click on our sheet and create sheet format. And this format name is going to be KETIV C size. You might want to create different size sheets for these as well, but C size KETIV custom. So now that I have this saved as a sheet format, let me go ahead and now save this drawing DWG, the standard DWG. Now this is going to save at the actual location of the template. So this is actually going to edit the template itself, and we're not just using the template. So I'll go ahead and hit save. It popped up on a different screen. Okay. And now let's go ahead and test this. I'm not going to use the same drawing or the same assembly because you might not be able to tell the difference. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to open up the one part of this assembly. So it's another assembly altogether. And I'm going to create a new standard DWG from this. Oh, the template's still open. Let me close it. A new standard DWG from this backframe MAME assembly. Okay. It's prompting me because I told the template to prompt me, approved by myself. The date approved is today. And it brought it in the way that I kind of expected it to. Might not be exactly where I want it to be. Maybe I'll move that there closer. Maybe I can move that there back further because not every model is going to be exactly the same. And this is a good time to bring up good practices when creating your front views, side views, top views, because it can be templatized for something like this, where if this isn't actually the front view, then you want to make sure you're starting to implement that kind of practice at your company. But it did bring in a parts list that's specific to this assembly. It did bring in a different number, and I see that. So this is where I need to change my title block size for the name. But it brought in my title, it brought in the sheet size, the scale in which we're reviewing this, and the logo. So it brings in everything exactly like you'd want it to be. Just be mindful where that everyone has access to your template. So that's the next step, is making sure that that's kind of consistent throughout. But that's essentially how you would go about creating your templates and customizing them. We can dive a little bit deeper into each one of these, but that's generally it, without going into too much into the weeds here. All right.
Cool. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and call it a week so far. Our next session is going to be next Thursday at around the same exact time. So look forward to that. And we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Take care.